What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to The Right Mindset. Today, I am going to go over dialogue for beginners. We're going to show some simple rules to remember, learning how to say more with the dialogue, and some real-time examples of giving your dialogue some depth. So with that, let's develop the right mindset. It's one of those days. That's right. A massive thank you to you for checking out my video. If you like what you hear, if you've been enjoying the series, please hit the subscribe and bell icon so you don't miss out. For anyone new here, very quickly, we like to go over the craft, understanding the craft, analyzing and reviewing storytelling, and of course, we have lots of interviews with authors. More to come, showing you their process and the industry from their eyes. Okay, today's lesson is dialogue for beginners. I love it. Simple rules to remember. Keep what's said tight. Tight dialogue is key to realism and great storytelling. There's a difference between rambling and rambling. Let me explain. If you ramble on about how are you, good, wonderful, etc., then you're wasting space. In stories, the most important part is information that brings the characters to life second and moves the story forward first. Does this mean you can't have character moments? Not at all. It means that what you write should have purpose, drive, and value. Tight dialogue begins with saying more with less. But again, this doesn't mean a monologue is out of the question. It just means that sometimes saying everything you need to say in a half of a page might have more strength to it than going on for several pages. Just saying. Rule number 2. Sometimes you don't need pages of dialogue to get your point across. Oh, yeah. A simple exchange can be part of your story's narrative. Instead of going into nonsensical conversation, then simply say, Ellen walked past Melissa in their neighborhood, and they exchanged pleasantries like they had done it 100 times before. Right? That's one way you could do it. Or, and as a visual medium, I'll give you a chance to look at that. Let's do this, because you're probably like, but Thomas, I want to see what that looks like, and I'm like, I want to see what it looks like. So I wrote it out for you. I have an example, so you can follow along with me. You didn't know you were gonna get serenaded today, did you? Either did I. All right. So the first example is very clear to the bones, okay? Ellen walked past Melissa in their neighborhood, and they exchanged pleasantries like they had done it 100 times before. But you can even turn it into something more visual, more impactful, and allow it to be a story without having to have a big conversation back and forth, right? So before I read the second part, there is a difference between Ellen going, hey, how are you? Pretty good. I'm glad. I hope all is well with your family. Everything's been great with my family. It's a beautiful day today, right? You don't need to write all that because it's not needed. It's just so you just have to say that it's an exchange of pleasantries, but you can add a little something to it, and you get Ellen walked past Melissa in their neighborhood, and they exchanged pleasantries like they had done it 100 times before. How many times can Melissa bring up the beautiful weather when it took 10 minutes of listening to her to be reminded of how cold December can be? Could she not see Ellen's cheeks were red and aching from all the forced smiling? So now there's some sort of moment happening. It's a little bit emotional, right? Ellen walked past Melissa in their neighborhood, and they exchanged pleasantries like they had done 100 times before, sets up the scene. And then we kind of go into Ellen's head a little bit. How many times can Melissa bring up the beautiful weather when it took 10 minutes of listening to her to be reminded of how cold December can be? So there's more movement, and that's the goal. That's the goal with writing, is that you want to say more with less, but also there's no reason to have them actually go through the conversation that is dictating all those little things, because it's not important, but their relationship's important. So it's good to kind of just see that in the narrative, which is fine. And the idea is that you want to hit beats that and drive the momentum forward. A fantastic story moment weighs on a character's exchange through dialogue. Yeah. Short dialogue can drive the plot through characters more effectively than long descriptions. This refers back to keep it simple and get to the point, right? But let's talk about dialogue and how it needs to create its own emotional beats. You want dialogue and the action of your scenes to kind of work together, to be on the same page, no pun intended. Dialogue, strong dialogue, in a story narrative is not real life conversation. I'm sure you've heard this a billion times. It can't be. It would literally fall into a lull and drive your reader to put the book down. Dialogue and writing Dialogue, when writing your narrative, must always have direction, and exchange of dialogue should be there to keep those beats moving throughout the scene. So you have plot beats you need, subplots, main plots that need to just keep going. And if you're going to use dialogue, it has to move that along. We looked at that in the last video for this particular playlist with Shawshank Redemption, the Game of Thrones, and The Rookie. I mean, every example gave plot right in the beginning through their dialogue or their action, and then it kind of built on character and relationships, which is leading to subplots. And that's how important it is to just, that's what they mean by tight. It doesn't mean to be like, hey, I need you to be my hand. And it's like, I don't want to be your hand, but you must be my hand because you're the only one I trust. Like, it doesn't have to be, that doesn't mean tight, where you just shrink it down to being like, doom, 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 doom. Tight just means that whatever you're going to say says something of value and worth. And it's not just rambling. Though it's okay that they ramble. It just, the rambling has to have purpose. And not, oh, it's character development. No, in the rambling, there needs to be plot points or purpose, or seeding. Okay. Like I'm saying, another thing is give your dialogue a chance to be more than on the nose, while also helping drive your plot forward. Maybe Chris says, you have really been slacking these last few weeks at work. I've had to cover for you 3 times, and it's about time you step up and get your act together. This is both on the nose, without real character development, and doesn't help move the scene along. Okay. Now, if I were to, let's say, do this, and let me put it together for you. You want it? I want it. You want it? I want it. Okay. I wrote this out already. I wrote it out already, and I just want you to know. Okay. So if we're looking at this, okay. Oh, yeah, here we go. Eric walks at a quick pace across the. Now, remember, the first one was Chris just literally was like, you have really been slacking these last few weeks at work. I've had to cover for you 3 times, and it's about time you step up and get your act together. That was the original piece. But how do we spread that out, pull that out, keeping it tight still, but building character and purpose and momentum? Eric walks at a quick pace across the main restaurant floor with his head avoiding the eyes of his fellow employees. He clocks in only to lift his head up to see Chris standing next to him. Chris, I'm sorry your mother was sick. Eric walks past Chris. Oh, my mom's not sick. Chris, by the way, I'm not doing tags. I'm just so you know who's talking. Oh, my mom's not sick. Chris, interesting. Chris follows close behind. My mistake. And here I thought you had a reason for being late again. Eric, I'm here. I'm ready to work. Chris, yes, but I'm the one. I'm the one the manager questions when you're not here. Eric grabs his apron. He ties it around himself. Tell Kim to ask me from now on, okay? Would that help your day? Chris, I'd rather not deal with Kim in the first place. Eric, you're right. And I know you've been working hard for the assistant position. I'll speak with Kim today. Chris, thank you. Okay, so there's stuff going on here. And less is more also means to take long-winded exposition dumps and spread them out into conversation like we just did. The long-winded element was that it was just straightforward. Chris going, you haven't really been slacking these last few weeks at work. I've had to cover for you 3 times, and it's about time you start. So, like, that's just like a chunk of information, but we're not getting any real story. Like, the story's not there. The story is the conflict and the disposition and everything, right? So the action is already setting up a pattern of behavior. They know they are late and are trying to avoid people. So this is consistent in telling that plot point. The plot point is that he's late, and it's a subplot probably. It might be the main plot. We don't know. We didn't really go that deep. We're just isolating a scene. Chris brings up the sick mother, showing his sarcastic energy, but how he's annoyed. So this is adding to the value of that he's doing it often for him. Eric being aloof and completely unaware of what's going on, as if his behavior is no one else's problem but his own, and he doesn't realize it's reflected onto other people, right? And that's like he just walks past him. He's like, "What do you mean, my mom, my grandma's not sick?" The conversation goes on to explain that Chris is trying to become a manager. Eric is becoming an issue, and they have a friendship where they can be forthright with one another. So we're developing a lot of elements here, and a subplot in this situation would be that Chris wants to be an assistant manager, right? So, and if we're going to look at it, what's the plot in this situation? Maybe the story is about life and times at a restaurant and all that happens there. That could be something that's, the plot. The protagonist is Chris and his journey to becoming an assistant manager. So it's all very relative. But it's important to look at your dialogue and the scene and say to yourself, what do I need to say? And what can I say that helps the scene? Not what would be cool here or how do I show a character? You know what? Maybe I'll have Chris talk about or Eric talk about how like he was at a movie and well, he was at a movie. You have to say to yourself, is being at the movie influence a subplot? What is it really saying? Is he a movie buff? Is his goal to eventually be in the movie industry? And if it's not, then like, why are we saying that? Like, why are we going that route? And that's what it means about being tight. Yeah, sometimes it's cool to kind of have throwaway moments. But those throwaway moments, like what's Chekhov's gun? If you see the gun by the end of the act, they got to use the gun, right? So it's the same thing with dialogue and plot points and everything you present to your audience needs to have purpose, and it can't just be character development. And I'll explain it this way: real character dynamic and emotions, right? So character development is through a character's choices, what they do and do not say, and what they do and do not physically do. It isn't uncommon for writers to utilize dialogue as a device to divulge information. For example, conversation is a great way to get things out for your readers to hear. But dialogue is a chance to do something more interesting. You can describe a character, highlight their mannerisms and personality through what they do and do not say. For example, Eric walked past with his head down. He's trying to avoid people, right? That's saying more than saying, oh, man, I hope no one notices me. Oh, God, I'm late again. Right? There's more in that action. We, as readers, connect to our characters based on their choices, but it's also the emotion of what they say. I know not everything needs to be overly dramatic, but everything is emotional on some level. Emotion is not just, I am mad or I am happy. You can get a reader to love or hate a character through that character's mind, and their mind is through their choices. Their words are a great way to peek inside of them, but their choices of what they say or don't say, do or don't do, is going to help create that character. That's how powerful dialogue can be, or the absence of dialogue. And when you're honing your characters, you got to remember, again, everything they choose to say is important to that character. Eric being like, "I'm here, I'm ready for work." Like, I don't understand the problem. Is the aloof is like he's like, it's my problem. Like, why is it? But really, he doesn't understand his behavior is affecting everyone else, which is also telling part of the story or the conflict. All right. Real quick, tags. I didn't put tags in that dialogue example because it was just to read the dialogue more than it was to be like, I'm sorry your mother was sick, Chris said. However, tags are not the secret to great dialogue. And a little reminder about tags is that they don't have to always be there or overused. Like, I don't have to write, I'm sorry your mother was sick, Chris said. Oh, my mom's not sick. Eric walks past Chris. Interesting. Chris says, like, you don't have to do that. There's an interesting reality to tags when you notice he said, she said over and over again. Once characters are really established, especially with two characters going back and forth, it's implied. And plus, their dialogue should sound like them anyway. But keep your dialogue clean by limiting how often you add a tag, action to that tag, or overuse, or the overuse of trying to make it more than it is. What that means is, you're adding action or you're adding a tag to make it feel like it's something more. And maybe that's time to look at the dialogue and the conversation and the rhythm of it. And maybe that's what's making it feel less. And it's not necessarily about adding tags. Are tags bad? No. It's just, if you're trying to get into a conversation and you're constantly going, he said, she said, he said, he said, she said, he said, she said, she said, he said, he said, right? Or, or they stop and they turn and they look at each other. They, blah, 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 blah. Gets up from the chair, goes to walk away, stops, turn back, blah, 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 blah. Refuses to look up at them, blah, 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 blah. Like, it changes the rhythm of the interaction. All right. Moving on to dialogue that says more. Okay. And after this section, we're actually going to do some real-time examples. If a speech runs on for some time, I'd say 3 or more sentences, it might be too long. Break it up with some action or someone else talking. A strong conversation is filtered through stretched out, tight moments between 2 or more people. It's okay to take a chunk of dialogue and lead to it by allowing the characters to live out the emotion of the moment. I did that with the example with Eric and Chris, where it was Chris just saying everything. Instead, we moved it around and we created a scene and we created movement. Okay. How many of the same characters do you have in your story? The answer should be 0. You need your characters to sound different from one another. This happens through adding mannerisms, speech patterns, even their culture, background, and age range could influence their dialogue. A 9-year-old is not going to talk as fluently or interestingly as, say, a 30-year-old. However, a 20-year-old is not going to sound like a 30-year-old if the 20-year-old grew up in a certain environment. If the 30-year-old has a full education and went to Harvard, and the 20-year-old, and another 30-year-old was a high school dropout, they might not have the same lexicon. Okay. Interesting. Isn't always in your face. What? Okay, so what I'm saying here is interesting isn't always in your face. Like a story isn't interesting because the information is plat, right? A strong tool in your dialogue box is sprinkling a seed of foreshadowing into your character's words. You don't have to have you don't have to have one character say they are upset or happy or in love with another character, but you can lead to that through multiple conversations while seeding the emotional exploration of that emotion throughout your story. So it's not interesting to just be like, well, I want people to know this thing, because that turns into lots of stuff is being said, but nothing is being said, right? Because it's just like, whoa, there's no real conversation. It just feels like I need to know that. So you just threw a big chunk of dialogue at me. So it's okay to look at certain things and say, do I need this to be so clear, or can I work this and build on this and turn it into a moment, and eventually a big moment, right? So the other thing is, small talk is small. Don't bother with it. A smart way to get around small talk is think about the conversation in a different way. Instead of starting the conversation at the very beginning, jump in late to the conversation. And I don't mean literally, no pun intended. What I mean is, what is the thick of the conversation, and start there. Then think about jumping out early to keep it on the table for later. A good example, using the Chris and Eric moment, is that we could have been like, hey, hey Chris, or hey Eric, and oh hey Chris, everything okay? Yeah, everything's all right. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. All right, because you're late again. The beginning is not important. You're late again is important. However, how do we make you're late again turn into something more? How do we make Eric look like he's late again? And that's, what I'm saying? Like, build on the conversation more than the things to lead up to the conversation. Because again, tight is not about making it short and quick. Tight is about getting the most important information in as quick as possible. All right. Oh, real time examples. Let's do this. Okay. Beep, 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 beep. All right. So in these real time examples, I got to set up the scene, characters, main plot, subplot, and say more with less, right? So first thing I will do is map out the scene and what I need in that scene. Then I'm going to write out what I want said and shown flat out, and then clean it up to have subtext. All right. So let's do it. First thing I want to do is map out the scene. Let's just think of a scene. Let's see. Christine. No. I always use Christine. Let's say Yvette. Yeah, Yvette. No, yeah, Yvette. Yvette. And who's the other character? And Albert. All right. Who doesn't like Albert? Okay. Now the idea is that let's say they are teenagers in high school. Let's say 10th grade. Okay. And Yvette is trying to avoid a boy who's been trying to get with her and is making her uncomfortable. Okay. So we know who Yvette is. And then Albert is not a very popular kid in high school, but he's well known among the other groups because of his quirks and and he has a real humorous personality, but it's too much for people. Okay. All right. So now I have my characters. Very simple. And I basically set up the scene. Look at all this. What is high school? Oh, yeah. I should have went to high school. Teens. Oh, there. I guess that makes sense. Quirks. Really humorous personality. See that? See, even writers, great writers have great editors. Okay. So the other thing that what is it? The story is about two teens in high school who randomly end up in each other's lives. Okay. Each other's lives. Okay. See, just write quickly. Don't worry about what's said. All right. Now, this is the main plot. Right? I did that. Boop. Okay. I capitalize it. All right. And then these are characters. Character. Hey, look at the character. All right. Da-da-da, da-da-da. Okay. So now I know that. Now I could kind of like work on the scene. Let's say the scene is very simple. All right. I'm gonna get my bullet points out because this is how I do it. All right. Before. Okay. So this is before the meet. Before the meeting of the two main characters. Let's have Yvette dealing with the annoying boy. All right. And let's have Albert talking with his only friend that can tolerate his big personality. All right. Albert is talking with his friend. All right. So this is the before they meet. Now let's talk about when they meet. When the two main characters meet. Now, see, I'm just quickly writing out the stuff, and then I'm showing you how to build out the scenes, how to figure out, and then from here we're going to figure out how to get the dialogue out straightforward, and then we're going to make it subtext dialogue. So you're going to see the three processes. All right. So when the two main characters meet, Yvette interrupts Albert with his friend and asks him to make like he is her boyfriend to keep to keep the annoying boy away from her. Albert agrees. Albert is not shy because of his big personality, and he agrees, but is laughing at the situation because of all the people she could have asked by him, right? And maybe it's like I'll put as a note, he doesn't feel worthy of people being interested in him because he is on at times for his big personality and stupid jokes. All right, this is how I do it. Okay, let's bring it up. People. All right. So, do I need a scene after that? No, because this is all I'm working on. All right. So before the meeting of the two main characters, so now I want to work out each scene. All right. Matt is in class with the annoying boy. Keeps leaning over his chair behind her, asking her questions about going out on Saturday. Bet is trying to be polite in the beginning, and over the course of the interaction becomes irritated and sets a boundary. The teacher ends up saying something to Yvette as she is the one caught. All right. Okay. Then we wanted the bell rings and Yvette leaves the class with the annoying boy following behind. She runs through the halls of the high school and into the crowd around corner. All right. Now, this is how we clean it up and tighten it up before we get there. Albert is talking with his only friend that can tolerate it. So when the two meet, so I can actually take this out and I could put it here. Interrupts Albert with his friend. We'll make that a note. Right off the bat, while I'm working out the scene, I already cleaned it up. Now, instead of having two scenes in my book to set up the before, I set up Yvette's before, and then we're going to set up Albert's before with the beginning of her interaction. So we're going to have Albert talking to somebody, and she interrupts them. So that's going to be there. So Albert is making a stupid joke, right? Because you got a show, don't tell. Is making a stupid joke, and his one friend laughs, and another person standing near them explains that the joke was rude. Funny. Albert says to the person that rudeness is as is humor. Okay. All right. And then we have to have Yvette runs up and is looking around to see where she is. She notices the annoying boy at the end of the hall and turns around to see Albert with his friend and asks him to act like her boyfriend. All right, there we go. And we could get this. Albert is not shy. What's this? Perspective, just as is humor. Because of his big personality, he agrees. Okay, so this is also, I would make this a note. We could put that right. We could put place. Okay. And we could do this. Albert agrees. Okay, but we wanna see what that looks like. Okay. Laughs. Situation. He looks down the hall and sees a kid, a boy, calling out Bet's name. Albert asks. Albert points out that it is her he is searching for. She agrees. Conversation is about what and how long their relationship has been going on, and are they in a good place. He continues to ask a lot of questions. She says just to be her boyfriend, and he wants to make it seem real. And then we could do, what would be funny is and the annoying boy shows up. Yvette says that this is her boyfriend. He will beat you up. Albert says, I don't remember agreeing to fight anyone. Yvette kisses him and then holds her arm around his shoulders. She's shorter than him, so it looks funny, as does the unfamiliar energy around each other. All right. And then I'm just writing this real quick, guys. Albert turns to the kid, saying that he will beat him up if the school beat him up if he doesn't leave his girl friend alone. Okay, there you go. All right, so the first thing that I had to do was I wanted to basically figure out the plot. So the plot was the story is about two teens in high school, 10th grade, who randomly end up in each other's lives. The first character is Yvette, is trying to avoid a boy who's been trying to get with her and is making her uncomfortable for weeks. Okay. Albert is not a very popular kid in high school, but he's well known among the other groups because of his quirks, and he has a really humorous personality, but it's too much for some people to deal with all the time. Okay. So before the meeting of the two characters. So now I have my scene. So let's bring this down. So I have the general gist of what I want them to say and how I want the energy of the scene to go. So now I got to create that scene, right? So before, and again, the first step is let's just establish a scene like we did with the bullet points. Yvette dealing with it. So we know that uh, uh, Yvette sits in the middle row during math class. Behind her, Vince. What's it, Vince? Behind her, Vince keeps placing his feet on the basket of the chair. The basket underneath the chair. All right. So again, we're not writing out. Well, I'm not. I'm not writing out like the clean version of this or like the really fancy version. I'm just trying to just get the scene going, just so I can see it. All right. So behind her, Vince keeps placing his feet on the basket underneath the chair. Yvette is showing clear signs of being annoyed by tapping her pencil over and over again on the desk. Right now, obviously, that's not how I would write the scene when it's done, but I'm getting the visual of it. I'm letting the scene kind of breathe, and I'm just doing train of thought, right? So what's his name? Vince. So now again, I want to be as clear and straightforward. I'm not gonna use any subtext or anything. So Saturday night, I have some free tickets to a local concert. Concert Saturday night. I have a concert, and you should go with me. All right, says Vince. All right, and then we gotta get a. You mean you're going to see your father playing in his stupid cover band, right? Cover band. Okay, Yvette snaps back. All right, now again, this isn't supposed to be like pretty and clean. I'm just trying to get it out. The thing though here that's happening is that now I've established Vince is the first one talking, Yvette is the second one. So I don't have to really use uh, tags. Okay. All right. I still think it would be a fun experience of us being in a crowded room, a dark, being in a dark, crowded room, singing along some good old music tunes. Tunes. All right. Nothing about that seems interesting to me. I'd rather be. Oh wait. See, let's get right to the point, right? So now it seems like experience for us to be in a dark credit. Okay. How many times do I have to tell you that I'm not interested in uh, going anywhere with you? Right? And then Vincent could say, you know, uh, coming up on 3 weeks, that doesn't mean I won't be able to persuade you with my charm. All right, so we're coming up 3 weeks now. But that doesn't mean that I won't be able to persuade you with my charm. That's the first scene. Well, fun. All right. Okay, now how many times do I have to tell you I'm not interested in going? Now, while I'm writing this, I realize I don't think I care about this part. The teacher, I don't think that's important. So we're gonna tools, uh, edit, format, text. Boop. I don't think that's important, but the bell needs the ring, and she has to run out. I need these two things. It gives Vincent a stare that could drill through his head. Bell rings, and Yvette jumps up out the door. Vincent runs after her. Oh, Vincent gets up and gets up. His backpack gets caught in the chair. He eventually leaves the classroom. All right. All right, and then we gotta just do the second part, which is she runs through the halls. Yvette runs through the halls as fast as she can, getting caught up in other students. She looks back to see Vince at the door, looking for her. She slithers through a small group of kids. Go at her. This gets attention, and he heads in that direction. Okay. She slithers through a small group of kids around the corner. We yell at her. Okay, this gets attention. Okay. Now again, what? She keeps getting caught up in other students crowding the hallways. Boy, doesn't even make sense. Caught up with caught behind groups, students crowding the hallway. Okay, again, I don't have to make this clean. I just need to get out the details and the action, right? Now, I could go on to the next scene. I'm not going to. I'm going to work on this quick scene just so the video we can get to the end. All right. So now, the goal is to clean this up and have some text. And I'm not saying clean up the scene as in like to make it pretty yet, but still now maybe I want to add a little bit of character. Uh, you know, um, let's see. Maybe I could add Yvette can feel Vincent looking at her from behind. The answer is no. But prompts. All right. Now this is so what I did here is I can get rid of the Vincent tag and the Yvette tag because Yvette prompts Vincent. All right. The answer is no. Again, the answer is going to be no. All right. You, me, free tickets this Saturday night. Right. And now we could get them kind of I already know it's going to be the worst night of my life. Right. You yeah. You, me. I know that's fine because it's dialogue. I already know it's going to be the worst night of my life. Right? I could say, instead of that, I go, dealing with you, if dealing with you, free game experience. I know. Answer is still no. Right? If dealing with you in class is any indication, the answer is still no. Right? And then you don't like music. Up there. Right? And then we could kind of keep this. You don't like me. Well, it's going to tell me to do that. I don't know why it does that. That's so weird. All right. Are you telling me you don't like music? Okay. You mean you're going to see your dad playing? All right. You're right. Your dad's stupid cover band, not music. All right. Okay. This is your last chance, or I'm going to ask Cindy to go. Was my last chance yesterday, and I said no to Friday night. Right. So now we know that. How many times do I have to tell you that I'm not interested in going anywhere? Right. So now we added a little bit of flavor, though. This is your last chance, Clarice. It was my last chance yesterday when I said no to Friday. So we're creating pattern, and that like he continues to do it, and we're seeing a little attitude. And now we don't need this, right? So, but that doesn't mean it won't be okay. You can't blame the guy for trying. You can't blame a guy for trying when the woman is so beautiful, right? Apparently not beautiful. Wait, Cindy is beautiful too. Nightmare of Vincent. All right. The bell rings. Okay, so now we can take away this. The bell rings and Yvette jumps up at the bed. Vincent gets up. Okay. They, Sunday. Okay. Vincent gets his backpack caught in chair. Okay. And now we can get rid of this. We know. Okay. Now we don't have to say eventually lose the room because what happens is Yvette runs through the halls as fast as she can. She keeps getting caught behind groups of students crowding in the hallway. She looks back to see Vincent at the door looking for him. So we know he got up, so we can take that out, right? But it's good to know that he's going to get up eventually because it was just the thing that came out of my head. It's a thought, and you want every thought to come out, and then you can just clean it up as you go. She slitters through a small group of kids around the corner who yell at her. This gets Vincent's attention, and he heads in that direction. She's okay. Da-da-da. And there you go. There's a scene. So we took a quick scene, and then we added a little bit. There's more dialogue, but remember, tight doesn't mean that it's short or quick. Tight means that everything's getting out. We have to establish their relationship and the fact that he's annoying. So again, the answer is going to be no. Yvette prompts Vincent. So before he even says anything, she knows that he's looking at her. He knows that he's going to say something. Why? Because he's done it every day, probably this week, right? And then you, me, free tickets for this Saturday night, right? He doesn't even acknowledge who she is or her feelings or how uncomfortable he's making her, right? And then so she just jumps back. If dealing with you in class is any indication, the answer is still no. Are you telling me you don't like music? It's going to be one of the best bands out there. Your dad's stupid cover band is not music. All right. So this is showing a little bit about Vincent, his delusion, his narcissism. He's like, even though his dad's playing in a cover band, he's like, oh, it's the best music. Of course, it's the best music. It's a cover band, so they're probably playing hits, right? And then your dad's stupid cover band is not music. So now he feels a little offensive, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna threaten her. I'm gonna ultimatum. This is your last chance, or I'm gonna ask Cindy to go." Uh, and then she says, "It was my last chance yesterday when I said no to Friday night." So now we have established the setup as there's a potential pattern, and then we have proven that pattern. We have given proof or evidence. We have qualified that pattern. You can't blame a guy for trying when the woman is so beautiful. He's just resilient. He's annoying, right? We don't have to have Yvette say that you're annoying or you're annoying me. We know it's happening and we know the behavior is showing. And then she says Cindy is beautiful too, but I wouldn't wish her the nightmare of Vincent. I could just say of you. All right, the bell rings and Yvette jumps up and gets out the door. Okay, but I wouldn't wish her. That is you. The bell rings and Yvette jumps up, gets out of it. So she says her line. The bell rings without even thinking. There's no breath. She's like, "I'm out of here. Let me get." So that's telling, right? And then what about Sunday? All right, so she's still going. Vincent gets caught. Gets his backpack caught in the chair. So this is also saying something, right? He's trying everything and nothing's working. He's just blocking himself. He's the issue to not getting any forward momentum. in the relationship or the potential relationship or even whatever it is. Okay. And then we want Yvette runs through the halls as fast as she can. She keeps getting caught behind a group of students crowding the hallway. This is also telling. There's action in this. It's showing her struggle with Vincent, that no matter how much she pushes back and how much she runs away from him, she's constantly being put into a corner, or she feels like she can't get away from him. So the students are representing that in the story. All right. She looks back to see Vincent at the door looking for her. Obviously, he's the looming monster. He's like, it's right there. Uh, she slithers through the small group of kids around the corner who yell at her. This gets Vincent's attention, and he heads in that direction. So there's a slither of hope through that corner. There's a chance to find salvation. Why? Because she meets Albert, who she's like, you got to act like you're my boyfriend. Which in this story they end up together, maybe, right? Yvette and Albert end up having like a relationship. It just kind of works out, but it all started in like a weird situation. So the slither of hope is through there, and she gets through the corner. But Vincent's attention, and he goes in that direction. So there's an example of taking something, and obviously, I can. My job is to go back, right? This is just the first draft. My job is now to go back and be like, Yvette sits in the middle row during a math class. I might want to kind of like build the classroom. The drone of this is let's see, Mr. Stevens. The drone of Mr. Stevens' voice. Hope math students. The drone. Yeah, drone. That's right. Drone voice of Mr. Stevens sucks the hope from his math students. Right. The droning voice. That's fine. The droning voice of Mr. Stevens sucks the hope from his class, his math students. Yvette. Okay. One student pulls the attention of the class through side eyes, side glances. One student draws the attention of the class through sideways glances. Pounding, tap, tap, tap of a pencil. Ricocheting off the desk. Ricocheting off the wood desk. Called out like a woodpecker. Screaming help. Now again, like I could. That's the point. It's like you go back and you create a pounding, tap 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 tap, right? But that's the goal. Is like I know that she's going to be sitting in this class. I know it's a math class. Maybe it's just terrible. So I want to make the scene as uncomfortable for her as possible. And it's the drowning voice of Mr. Stevens sucks the hope from his math students. So we know it's a math class. One student draws the attention of the class through sideways glances, the pounding tap 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 of a pencil ricocheting off the wood desk, the 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 wooden desk calls out like a woodpecker screaming for help. Yvette sits in. Now, obviously, I would change this too, but that's the goal. As you can see, like when you're writing, Desk called out. Like when you're writing, the whole point of it is to just get the thoughts out and set the scene up with as straightforward information as possible. And then you go back and you start adding a little bit of the flavor, the characters, etc., etc. All right. Boop. All right. I actually kind of like doing the examples for you guys, but final thoughts. Honestly, writing is hard. But it gets easier as long as you do it. Practicing takes time, and getting used to your style of writing is all about patience. Dialogue needs to have something to say without always saying it outright. And as a beginner, or you've been doing it for quite some time, you'll find your dialogue and storytelling evolving over time with each new tool you add to your arsenal, and with the practice of trying dialogue before you even get into the big of writing stories. Now, it's okay if your writing is on the nose in the beginning, just like I was writing on the nose. And it is absolutely okay if you practice writing when you're not writing story. Set up scenes with people who know and write out dialogue for these people. That's one way to practice. You listen to your friends and people you know, and you go, how would they talk if I put them into this situation? Take characters from stories you have and put them in scenes that aren't in your book. So another way is you're working on a story, but you can't quite find their dialogue. Well, put them in scenes that are outside your story in very mundane situations, an ordinary day, and see who they are. The point is, dialogue takes time to perfect, and perfection isn't necessarily the goal. What I mean is, the goal is to keep going even when you think it's great. It is great, or it outright sucks. So you have to keep going even as you develop it. So I think it's great. It actually is great, and it outright sucks because you're aware of it. Comes through practice, and you have to just keep going and keep practicing. Don't feel it's good yet. Work on honing your dialogue skills. What was bad yesterday is only going to improve today when you try again and again and again. You'll find your voice, your character's voice, and the voice of your story over time with a little effort. Give yourself that time as a beginner to find your way there. And once you get there, set the goal of skill further away, each a little bit more and more and more. So every time you reach a certain goal of like, oh, I feel like I am saying what I need to say, or I feel like this character has a voice, push the goal line a little further and try something else and work at it. The next video in the series will be, I'm going to explore dialogue in a different way. I'm going to show you 3 things. The first thing I will do is show you how to look at dialogue and clean it up after you've written it out. Second, I want to give you insight on making sure your characters are being true to their speaking. And third, when does dialogue go from being character to story without saying anything? Basically, are they talking more than they are exploring? Okay. Question. What is it you try to say in your stories beyond the narration? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you want to learn a little bit more about improving your craft, the insights in the industry, and want to hear from fellow authors about their journeys and their writing process, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss out. All right, that's it. We're out of here. I'm done. I'm going. And as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.